In 2006, an anonymous post appeared on the internet describing a creature so disturbing that thousands of people would later claim they had seen the exact same thing. None of them knew each other. They lived in different countries, came from different backgrounds, and shared their stories years apart. Yet their descriptions were almost identical. They all spoke of a pale humanoid with unnaturally long arms, empty black eyes, and a habit that made it far more terrifying than any ordinary monster. According to these accounts, the creature didn't chase people through the woods or break into their homes. Instead, it quietly watched them while they slept, sometimes returning night after night before vanishing without a trace. As these stories spread across the internet, the mysterious figure became known as the Rake. Some dismissed it as nothing more than a fictional horror character, while others became convinced they had encountered something that science could not explain. But what made this legend so unforgettable wasn't just the creature itself. It was the fact that so many people believed they had experienced the exact same nightmare. The modern legend of the Rake first gained widespread attention in the late 2000s, when anonymous users on horror websites began sharing remarkably similar stories involving a pale humanoid creature. Although the internet helped popularize the legend, believers often argue that similar beings have appeared throughout history under different names. Ancient myths from various cultures describe ghostly figures that wandered through forests after sunset, silently observing travelers before disappearing without leaving footprints behind. Medieval folklore also contained stories of thin creatures that crawled across rooftops at night and vanished before anyone could approach them. While historians generally consider these tales to be nothing more than folklore shaped by fear and imagination, supporters of the Rake believe they may describe the same mysterious entity long before it received its modern name. Whether these similarities are meaningful or simply the result of humans sharing common fears remains impossible to determine, but the connection between ancient legends and modern internet stories has helped make the Rake feel far older than it actually is. As more people encountered the legend online, many began claiming that they had experienced something strangely similar years before ever hearing the name, the Rake, adding another layer of mystery to a story that already blurred the line between fiction and reality. One of the earliest stories associated with the Rake tells of a man living alone in a quiet house on the outskirts of a small town. According to his account, he awoke one night after hearing a faint scratching sound coming from somewhere inside his bedroom. Believing it was probably a mouse or the sound of tree branches brushing against the outside of the house, he slowly opened his eyes without thinking much about it. As his vision adjusted to the darkness, he immediately realized that something was terribly wrong. Sitting at the foot of his bed was a pale figure unlike anything he had ever seen. It was painfully thin, with unusually long arms that rested against the wooden floor and fingers that appeared far too long to belong to any human being. Its head remained tilted at an unnatural angle while its empty eyes stared directly into his face without blinking. The witness later explained that the creature never attempted to attack him or even make a sound. Instead, it simply watched him in complete silence, creating a level of fear he had never experienced before. After what felt like several endless minutes, the creature suddenly stood with unnatural speed, dropped onto all fours, and rushed toward the bedroom door before disappearing into the darkness of the hallway. The men searched every room in the house only moments later, but everything remained exactly as it should have been. Every window was locked, every door was still secured, and there was absolutely no evidence that another living thing had entered the house. Although skeptics dismissed the story as a nightmare or an episode of sleep paralysis, the witness insisted until the end of his life that what he saw that night was completely real. As the legend continued spreading online, similar stories began appearing from people who claimed they had never spoken to one another. Some reported waking to find a pale figure standing silently beside their bedroom door, while others described seeing the same creature crouched outside a window, watching from the darkness before disappearing without warning. One family claimed that their young daughter repeatedly complained about a white man sitting beside her bed every night. At first her parents believed she had simply developed an imaginary friend, but her descriptions became increasingly detailed over the following weeks. She insisted the figure had no expression, moved on all fours instead of walking, and never spoke a single word. Soon afterward, the parents themselves began hearing unexplained scratching noises echoing through the hallway late at night. Their dog refused to leave the living room after sunset and growled constantly toward an empty staircase where nothing could be seen. Eventually, the father claimed he briefly saw a pale figure standing in the darkness before it vanished almost instantly. No evidence was ever discovered, and many investigators believe the family's experiences can be explained through stress, fear, and coincidence. Nevertheless, stories like these spread rapidly because they all followed the same disturbing pattern. The creature almost never attacked. Instead, it observed its victims from the shadows, creating the horrifying impression that it had been watching them long before they ever noticed its presence. That unsettling behavior became the defining characteristic of the Rake and remains one of the reasons why the legend continues to frighten people even today. As more reports appeared across forums and video-sharing websites, the Rake quickly transformed from an obscure horror story into one of the internet's most recognizable urban legends. Artists created terrifying illustrations based on eyewitness descriptions, filmmakers produced short horror movies inspired by the creature, and countless content creators debated whether the stories represented elaborate fiction or genuine paranormal encounters. Psychologists suggested that many reports could be linked to sleep paralysis, a well-documented condition in which people awaken temporarily unable to move while experiencing vivid hallucinations that often include the sensation of an unwanted presence in the room. This explanation makes sense to many researchers because sleep paralysis frequently occurs during the early morning hours, exactly when most alleged Rake encounters supposedly take place. However, believers remain unconvinced, arguing that the remarkable consistency of the descriptions cannot be ignored. They point out that witnesses from different countries often describe nearly identical features, including the creature's pale skin, elongated limbs, silent behavior, and spider-like movements. Whether this similarity reflects shared psychology, the influence of internet storytelling, or something that has yet to be understood is impossible to answer with certainty. What is undeniable, however, is that the Rake has become far more than just another scary story. It has evolved into a modern myth that continues to grow because it transforms ordinary nighttime fears into something that feels disturbingly possible. Every unexplained noise outside a bedroom window, every strange shadow in a dark hallway, and every sudden awakening in the middle of the night becomes just a little more frightening once the image of the Rake enters the imagination, and perhaps that is the true reason why this legend refuses to disappear. Whether the Rake is nothing more than an internet creation or a modern urban legend inspired by humanity's oldest fears is a question that may never have a definitive answer. There is no credible scientific evidence proving that such a creature exists, yet that has never stopped the legend from spreading across the world. Perhaps that is because the Rake was never frightening simply because of the way it looked. It became unforgettable because it gave a face to a fear almost everyone has experienced at least once, the uneasy feeling of waking in the middle of the night and sensing that you are no longer alone. Long before your eyes adjust to the darkness, your instincts begin searching the room, every shadow seems to shift, every small sound suddenly feels important, and for a brief moment logic gives way to imagination. That is where legends like the Rake thrive. Maybe that is the true reason this story refuses to disappear. It doesn't ask you to believe that a monster is real. It only asks one simple question that lingers long after the story ends. The next time you wake unexpectedly in the early hours of the morning, will you immediately close your eyes and go back to sleep, or will you look toward the darkest corner of your room just to make sure nothing is watching you? Chances are you'll find nothing there. But if you hesitate for even a single second before turning off the lights tonight, then the Rake has already done exactly what every unforgettable urban legend is meant to do, leave you questioning the darkness long after the story is over.